Playing around with audio manipulation and resampling within Ableton has been a real fun and useful tool that I use in pretty much all my tracks. It's kind of the way I make a lot of my weird, wonky, crazy sounds, but it's definitely been a fun and useful tool. So basically in this tech tip, I'm going to be talking about all the different warping algorithms that Ableton has to use, and I'll be showing you a couple little demos with a couple loops and samples. Okay, so basically for this tip, we're going to go in and look at Ableton's audio warping algorithms. So you can find those by clicking on a clip, and they're right down here in the bottom left-hand corner. So I pulled in a couple samples here that we're going to play with, and I'm just going to show you some things that happen when you use these algorithms to, I guess, resample audio or kind of play with it. So the first one I have is a drum beat at 90 BPM, and we have it on beats mode. So there's all these different modes right here. We're just gonna focus on beats right now. And basically, the way I understand beats mode working is it's going to basically cut at every one of these transients that we see here. So if you're either gonna speed it up or slow it down, it's gonna be a little choppy or a little overlapped almost, but it'll be cut off. So when we speed it up, it sounds like that, but let's go back to the original tempo. So back to speeding it up, we kind of lose the tails, but it kind of, just lose those tails, and it just kind of does that, like it's big. But then when we slow it down quite a bit, it basically chops off the end. So it's just making each one of those transient points just shrink. So let's undo all of this, get back to our original clip. All right, so now that we know that, you can go into this preserve mode, and basically right now it's on transients, and that's going to pick each one of these homemade gray markers that it makes as one of its transient points. So it just kind of puts them all the way here, but if you put in your own, it will also react to that too. So if we play it, this one here. Oops. There we go. So this one's just gonna cut this sample off when we use this little envelope here. So when I pull this down, you're gonna hear that the sound gets cut off after each transient. So let's delete this right here and delete this one. So you can hear how it's just cutting off the sound, like the volume basically, after each transient point that it has marked in. So there's all these different transient preserve modes. So this one just loops the sound forward. So if we slow this down, so it's just looping a part, the transient part here, but it keeps looping the sound forward. But this way, this third transient preserve mode here, it will loop it back and forth, so you'll hear the difference right now. So you get that like forward and reverse at the same time, whether you slow it down or speed it up. So basically, yeah, Beats is really good. It works really well for like one shots and kind of drum samples very well, and it's good for like pitching up and down too. Just one shots mainly, but you kind of lose that like top end when you pitch it down, and you kind of, yeah. And within all the transient preserve modes, you can also go around these other routes. Instead of it snapping to all these transient that it automatically marks in, you can actually just switch it to a quarter note. So let's put this back to here. So it's on every 1, 2, 3, 4. And we can switch to 30-second notes. Which that actually sounds kind of cool. It has like almost like an echo effect for this sample in particular. So yeah, let's go back to this and we'll try it in a tones mode. So tones is another algorithm, and basically it's kind of, I'm gonna get rid of this, kind of like a, I guess they would say granular synthesis in a way. So it takes the grain size. So basically what it's doing is chopping up each transient, and depending on your grain size, it could be just cutting out things like this and then duplicating them on the way by. So that would sound something like that. That's kind of the basic idea from what I'm gathering. I use it in a way that I just experiment with the sound. So let's try it with a high grain. And then low. Here, we'll actually move the tempo a little bit. See, that's just like a longer like delay of it almost, but this way it's like quicker. And basically we can move on to texture here because it's almost the same thing except for it has this flux part. So the flux part can just, it takes those chops I showed you, but I guess it changes it a bit more and makes it more randomized. So let's go all the way down, put the flux all the way up. And while we bring this down, and then we can play with the grain size. Cool, so basically that's the best I can explain those right there. I'll show you some cooler other things with a couple one-shots here in a bit. But let's move on to repitch. And basically all repitches, so you hear your original sample at its regular tempo, but when you speed up the tempo, it's basically gonna speed up and increase the pitch to what fits the tempo. So, and then when we slow it down. So it's basically like playing a record and slowing it down or speeding it up. Same kind of idea right there. It's pretty simple compared to the other ones. So let me just show you these on a whole other sample in general. We'll get rid of this drum track now. So this is kind of how I play around, and I make some weird, crazy sounds from just like the most random things, say this percussion hit. So say I want to put tones here. And I'm going to speed that up. So pretty cool texture already. Let's try the repitch. So now the cool thing that I can do is just press Command J or consolidate. And I can throw this around. So on pitch, see already like crazy different sound. So let's try texture now and double the length. consolidate. And I'll just keep doing this until I get a really cool sound that I really enjoy. Alright, so let's leave that for a moment and we'll come back to it. And I'll show you Complex and Complex Pro real quick. So I have this hilarious sample.
Chicken and waffles!
Got that off Splice some time ago, no idea, thought it was funny. But we're gonna put it into Complex. So basically Complex is just as it sounds. It's very complex algorithm that, like, I think it adjusts a sample. So if you pitch it up, it's adjusting the frequency range to kind of match the right frequency range, something of the sort. You can look into the manual and kind of get a more explanation, but I'm just gonna show you kind of what I use it for and what it does. So for this vocal, the sounds
chicken and waffles.
Someone's saying chicken and waffles, so I can pitch it up, say an octave.
Chicken and waffles.
We got chipmunky, and then we've got
Chicken and waffles.
more demony. But it still stays in time, which is great. But the difference is when you hear that chipmunky up here.
Chicken and waffles.
So the difference between Complex and Complex Pro is the format option. So now listen to it. Even though it's pitched up an octave, we've got format and the envelope here. It's gonna sound more like the original sample sounded, but just higher pitch. So here it is.
Chicken and waffles.
And compare it back.
Chicken and waffles.
Chicken and waffles.
So yeah, it just like kind of keeps that tone more together.
Chicken and waffles.
So you can play with this envelope.
Chicken and waffles.
Chicken and waffles.
And then we can also pitch it down. So I'm going to put that back to 128.
Chicken and waffles. 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 Chicken and waffles.
So super cool. And even if you stretch it.
Chicken and waffles. Chicken and waffles. Chicken and waffles. Chicken and waffles.
Yeah, so super cool. How you can just keep a sound pretty close to what it was, but in a different pitch. It's really nice to play with, and it works really well for what we were just doing back here. So let's delete the sample. And now we're going to try and just play around here and consolidate until we find something cool. Consolidate. I'm going to reverse it. Try something a little different here. Then reverse it again. Go back to complex. So yeah, it's just crazy what you can come up with. Like, this would be a really cool sound in the background of a break. Throw some reverb on it, that would sound crazy, or some maybe can keep going as far as you want with it. I mean, at some point you could destroy the audio and it's just not usable, but it's always like cool stuff for background of a track. Just a real nice ambient noise. And that was all made from that like percussion hit. So let's reverse it, complex, and pitch back up. Yeah, super cool to me. I'd probably use that. So yeah, now that we've basically talked all the way through that, we're gonna try and play around with the basses we've made from the past videos in our other project and try and do the same resampling to see if we can come up with anything kind of cool or some unique sounds to really make our drop stand out from other dubstep rhythm kind of stuff that's going on right now, other bass music. So yeah, we'll see you in the next video.